Welcome into Husker247 Daily. I'm Mike Schaefer, joined by Michael Bruntz, and it is Monday, and we're here to talk about Nebraska football after a big 68-0 win over Akron, held the shutout, and the Huskers flooded the bench. Lots and lots of players in this game. I believe over 100 people, Bruntz, on Nebraska's roster. I think more people than what is going to be future roster limitations. I think they had 107 play, and they eventually want to be down to a 105-man roster. So a true flooding of the bench, something we haven't seen in a while. Did you enjoy that? Getting to see all sorts of iterations of Nebraska's lineups throughout the day on Saturday, throughout the game
Yeah,
on Saturday.
yeah. The only thing longer than the concession lines was Nebraska's list of guys who played on Saturday against Akron. It was fun to see. Here's what I appreciated. I liked. I mean, I don't know where this falls on the sportsmanship spectrum, but I appreciated that when Nebraska was up big, they were still letting TJ Lateef chuck it around the yard a little bit. Like it wasn't just turning around and handing off and just trying to get out of there. They were running the offense. They were seeing what some of those guys could do. So it was nice. I appreciated Dana Holgerson's approach to that. It was like it's our second team, third team guys. Like we're going to run our offense and get a good look at guys. And I thought a number of guys looked great. Basically, was it like 4 minutes left in the third quarter? I think was the first time Latif went in. But there were some guys that impressed in that stretch. I thought. Was there anybody that really stood out?
Yeah, certainly at the end there. I mean, I think we just start with kind of the one that people maybe had some interest in, but TJ Lateef in his first appearance in Memorial Stadium certainly, I thought, as we use this phrase a lot here, checked all the boxes. He was very
Yeah,
athletic. He can get out. He can run a little bit more certainly than Dylan can. He hit some guys with his passes. We have the great joke going around this weekend about TJ Lateef having more passing yards in his quarter of football than Mark Gronowski has had in 2 games with Iowa so far, which I think says more about Iowa than it really does anything TJ Lateef. But he looked good. He looked fluid. He looked like someone that you're excited about. And then the worst part of the NIL transfer portal era creeps into your brain, and you're like, man, we got to pay a little bit of money to have to keep him in December. And so, I think the other thing, Bruntz, and not to make this all a TJ Lateef discussion, but isn't it going to be kind of hard to keep him for just 4 games? Like, I think a red shirt might be kind of difficult here because I'm expecting him to play against Houston Christian.
well, Matt Rule said after the game actually that he's going to play as needed. They are not moving forward with TJ Lateef as though he is absolutely going to redshirt. Like he's not going to play in 4 and then all of a sudden Jalen Gramstad's going to be the guy. Like TJ Lateef is the backup. And I think you saw on Saturday what Matt Rule has been kind of saying about him, and we've been
Yep.
hearing about him, is that there's a dynamic athleticism there, especially in just being able to make plays off schedule. I mean, he hit Akron with the dead leg, almost got in the end zone on that 10-yard scamper. The knee just touched before he got in. But I think that he kind of brings a little bit of a different look to the offense that um, Dylan doesn't necessarily have with the legs. And going back to high school, TJ Lateef was a willing runner. Like
Yeah.
there's clips of
Do
him,
remember the highlight. Yeah, the
yeah,
hurdle.
just hurdling guys. Like he was running like he was like a 200-pound running back out there sometimes. And I think that's kind of intriguing, and I'm eager to see how he kind of develops. And from what his own admission was he had to make a lot of mistakes in the spring to get to the point where he is now, and just kind of go through things. So I thought that was a really nice debut, and I think it kind of shows too where the conversation all spring and early in fall was like, yeah, we know what we got with Jalen, but TJ does this. That they were just kind of waiting for him to emerge, and I thought that was a really nice debut.
Yeah, I have absolutely no qualms about being worried about a red shirt for a guy where, who knows what the future holds for TJ Lateef, but I think certainly Nebraska fans are going to enjoy when he comes onto the field. All right, so you mentioned guys that kind of came in sort of later in the game. Who stood out for you? We talked about Latif. Who else is on that list?
Yeah, I thought, I mean, they were out there with him, but Isaiah Mozee, the way he was running after the catch late in the game, I thought was pretty impressive. It's interesting to kind of square that with just straight handing the ball off to him and the way that's kind of looked at times, because I think that hasn't looked nearly as good. But you get the ball to him in space, and he's going to make a play. I mean, he's got some quickness, the speed's there. I think the willingness to kind of run through tackles is also there, which you don't always see with freshmen, and especially guys that I know he played running back as a senior, but high school wide receivers sometimes are not as willing to do that. But I was really pretty impressed by him. Um, I, I guess that maybe feeds into a little bit of a wider conversation. But did we learn much about the running backs? And Mozee's kind of in an interesting case now with Janarian Bonner out. It feels like he's being kind of more shoehorned more into that role versus just a straight second team back, which I would say coming out of Saturday, I would say is probably Mekhi Nelson at this point.
Yeah, it's Mekhi Nelson. It's fascinating because you hit the thing that sort of strikes me about Nebraska's backup running back picture. Just to turn around and hand the ball off looks one way, and yet on Saturday, all of them look good catching the ball out of the backfield, which is also a compliment of the guys distributing the ball, particularly Dylan Raiola hitting people in stride. So you have Mekhi Nelson catching that thing, and he's already at full go. You have Quentin Ives, he's one-handing pulling that in. He's able to keep running with it. We all remember 2021 and Adrian Martinez's inability to make that flare pass, and that's not an issue for Dylan Raiola. And so it makes it an extension of a handoff, and all of those guys look good doing it. It's just a turnaround and the handoff and what that all looks like. It still feels like it's Mekhi Nelson. Quentin Ives, I'm glad that he was able to have that touchdown later in the game because he missed one earlier. He was able to find a hole that was built very large on a play that Nebraska ran quite a bit there. I think backup running back is very much a work in progress. I think Isaiah Mozee deserves more run when Nebraska gets into the meatier part of its schedule. I want to see that guy play more based on what we saw here. Another name for you, one catch, 37 yards, touchdown, hurdles a guy on his way in. We've heard about Quinn Clark. We know he's a legacy. We know Matt Rule thinks pretty highly of him. He had some nice things to say in the press conference after the game about how when they brought him in to work out, he knew that he knew a little bit about his story. They just knew they wanted him. They weren't sure how it was going to work out. But Quinn Clark, that was aesthetically very, very pleasing to watch on that pitch and catch there with Dylan Raiola for the touchdown.
That was basically what they'd been looking for in the big play was, right? Like make a catch, make a guy miss, and either score or get downfield. I thought that was a really good example of it. And it very much feels like Nebraska has their starting three wide receivers very set group. But yep. I mean, Quinn Clark, I think, is right in that next wave of guys, like towards the top of that group. And bring something a little bit. I mean, he's a big wide receiver in that group, and it was good to see him kind of do something like that because it's a great story, but also a guy that I think they're going to have to rely on a Big Ten play.
Yeah, and I think he can make plays, and that's why he's out there. You know who else was out there? Michael Bruntz. Nebraska had a pretty nice recruiting weekend. Even though it was Akron, they took advantage of the late kickoff, got guys in from a number of places, visitors from North Carolina like Griff Galloway, visitors from Atlanta or the greater Atlanta area. KJ Green, defensive lineman, a top 100 player in the 2027 class. We saw him out there before the game. Jacob Thomas, wide receiver that's committed to Pitt. He visited Nebraska, had a great time, was raving about it, already planning on coming back. If I was Pitt, I'd be a little bit worried about where that thing might be headed. Albert Simeon and Quelly Fielder, a 2027, 2028 offensive line combination. They were hanging out with Matt Erickson. Erickson told me that the recruits were having a very good time before the game, just kind of soaking up the atmosphere. And, Nebraska had their quarterbacks of the future, Dayton Raiola and Trey Taylor there as well. And so a guy that I think is at least worth mentioning that I'm hoping to talk to here on Monday, CJ Schaefer, 2029 quarterback. I know 2029 is forever away. This guy already has a lot of Power 5 attention or Power 4 attention and offers. So a lot happening for Nebraska on the field, but also off the field. And they're doing a nice job of recruiting. I don't know if you knew this. Keith Williams snuck out to California late last week to get some FaceTime in with some programs over there. And so Nebraska's taking advantage of some different recruiting rules to get some of their staff out there to see some different places. So good on Nebraska taking advantage of that weekend. I doubt we see as big of a visit list with Houston Christian this weekend, but Nebraska took advantage, late start, and got some people out there, and the response has been strong. All right, Bruntz, I think that wraps it up for us here with Husker247 Daily on Monday. Be sure to check out everything we got going on. Matt Rule press conference later today. We'll have all the coverage at Husker247 Sports.